1, 2, 3.
It's time to talk fantasy football. Get your squad ready for this week's action with Frank and the Purple Rain crew. Now, live from the Fantasy Wire studios and home of the Casual Conversation podcast, it's the Purple Rain Fantasy Show.
What is up? Week 10. Welcome to the Purple Rain Show. Proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Network. You're listening to the home of the Casual Conversation Fantasy Football Podcast. We're in week 10 of the fantasy season, NFL season. I'm your host, Frank B. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyWireHQ, online at thefantasyfootballwire.com. On the website, you got all the week starts and sits, risk reward players, fantasy pro rankings, podcast links, audio vault. I apologize. I have not been updating that as early in the week as I'd like, just due to work, getting off later. I got some new stuff going on with the real life full-time job, so it's pushing me out a little bit. I'm trying to get starts and sits on there like Wednesdays if I can, but otherwise drop dead prior to kickoff on Thursday Night Football. Everything will be updated, so you can check it out there. So it's just a little later than usual, but it's out of my control. The real life full-time job demands, and we must sacrifice. But you can follow the Purple Rain Show online at purplerainshow.com, on Twitter as well at Purple Rain Show. The crew on there, we got everything hitting you up every week, so check that out. Thanks for downloading this episode. Do me a favor, give it a retweet, a share, leave a review, tell a friend. If there's anything you want to hear on the podcast, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter, profile a roster. If you got specific questions on player versus player breakdowns, whatever you'd like. This week, we can kick it off here. I got a DM from a man, Hayden. Hayden Hall, at Hayden Hall _. This was one off the bat here that kind of made me do a double take. He hits me up on Twitter here with a trade. I guess he's getting a trade request. Hayden has Christian McCaffrey. Everybody wants McCaffrey, right? He's the number one guy. NFL MVP? I think so. I think he carries that team. He's unstoppable. I mean, he's just insane. Anyway, so here's the trade offer. Hayden's looking at. He gets an offer. Trade out Christian McCaffrey and Odell, and in exchange, he will get Chris Godwin from the Bucks, Aaron Jones from the Packers, and Eckler from the Chargers. You can hear my dogs. I apologize. They're going nuts here. Hey! Cut it out. So, would you give up Christian McCaffrey for Godwin, Jones, and Eckler? I said no. If you got McCaffrey, you're almost in the same place last year as if you were fortunate enough to get Mahomes before he blew up, or you took a chance on him in a draft. Remember, and how locked in you were with him. There's no way you're giving him up, right? He damn near could carry your whole fantasy squad. So I know the player that by the numbers, you're looking at a 3-for-2 trade. But if I look at the names, Mike Evans has been blowing up. So there goes a little value in Godwin. Aaron Jones, as much as I love Aaron Jones, and nobody's been honking that horn harder than me, I love him, but man, he hasn't played a whole season ever. So I'm worried about an injury there, and he's got a timeshare split with Jamal Williams in Green Bay. Matt LaFleur has been incorporating Jamal Williams into the game plan. Not a lot. I mean, he's getting sprinkled in, but he's making the most of every opportunity. He's got touchdowns, catching stuff out of the backfield. So it's not like if you've got Jones, and I've got him in 2 leagues, you really need a couple home run hits out of that guy every game to get a good point total. And if he's contained or he's not really breaking loose, I mean, he's kind of average to a degree. And then Eckler, he's another one. He's splitting time with Gordon. It's a shared backfield. Wisenhunt is no longer calling the plays, which is nice. But Eckler is still, you're still sharing a backfield. I mean, McCaffrey's got that on lock all to himself. Day in, Sunday out. I mean, he's just, you set him and forget him, right? I love a player like that on my fantasy team. As much as I'd be tempted to take in a haul of those players, I think the guy that's offering you the trade is kind of on like a recency bias downswing of names. So when I look at the whole, down the road and I'm looking at fantasy playoffs, man, I'm looking ahead. You got to look ahead. Do I like each of those matchups in the fantasy playoffs? I don't know. You got to check that out, see how you feel about it. But for me, if it's my team, I'm not trading them. I'm going to hold tight. And maybe if I've got a different running back and I could package, I think name value might be more to this guy. If I can get a good name value back and trade him and Odell away, because I'm done with Odell. I mean, I wouldn't. If somebody wants to trade me something that you can have him. I didn't draft him in any leagues this year. But if somebody wanted him, you could package Odell and another running back. Not to the degree of McCaffrey, but maybe if you could flip those 2 for 2 and make a 2-for-2 trade. Or if he wants to do like Eckler and Godwin, maybe straight up for that. I mean, you could probably combo. I'd try to combo some offers for him and go that route. So I hope that helps. If you got other questions, hit me up. If anybody else wants to comment, let me know. There's a little mini thread going about that. So, but yeah, that would be my move right there, Hayden. That's how I would roll. And speaking of that, it is week 10. And with week 10, it's getting down to the wire here for playoffs. Are you in? Are you close? You got one locked up. You looking ahead. You think you can get in your league. If you're not, a lot of the trade deadlines are set this week. So fantasy advice for week 10, I would say if you got a trade deadline this week and you got to make a move, hit those offers nonstop. Keep them. I mean, flood some people. The worst they can do is reject it. Throw some stuff out there. If you got to make a move, see what you can get. Now is the time. And then otherwise, you're going to be reliant on the waiver wire. So you better have some gems that you're looking at. Maybe some players, start looking at the depth charts on some of these teams. Look at who is injured, who's behind them, who's next man up, so to say. Anybody else that could be available on waivers. Look at some other teams. Anybody that hasn't been started for a while that you think another team's going to drop soon, maybe try to trade or do an offer there. But yeah, this is the maneuvering part. I know a couple leagues I should be okay for playoffs. A couple other leagues I'm terrible. I'm definitely not making it. And then I got a couple other ones where I'm on a bubble, man. I'm close. I could get in. I need a good run here at the end of the season, but the fantasy season typically it's up and down and it comes in swings. So if you can start out and ride a hot wave after the draft, that's always best. But if you're losing and you've been losing for a couple weeks, hold tight. Don't give up. Never give up until, week 12, 13, whatever. But don't give up because you never know what kind of run you can get on. I've seen leagues where a team goes on like a 7-game win streak into the playoffs. Like, holy crap, this guy sucked coming in, 5 weeks earlier. And all of a sudden he's in the playoffs. What the playoffs? Yeah, you kidding me? So stuff like that, you never know. There's just as much parity in fantasy as there is NFL, real life. So just be patient, make the moves you can make, and let it all play out. There's nothing you can do. Just have fun, enjoy the ride. However you finish, you finish. At least you can say, I did everything I could do to get this damn team over the hump. And if they don't make it, then you blow it up next year. You make some notes. I mean, I try to kind of keep a little bit of tabs on strategies, what worked during the year, what didn't, what I could do better next year with being aggressive maybe for some players, maybe not. Maybe I'm a little too patient for guys and I don't cut them early enough. All kinds of, everybody plays a completely different game as far as strategy goes. So just kind of look inward at yourself. What did you do this year that you think cost you a playoff spot? What did you do this year that locked it, got you in? Repeat that. So kind of look at it that way. That's my best fantasy advice for week 10. And of course, any discussion on fantasy advice, hit us up. I love talking that strategy. We get into some NFL injuries. We've had a few this week here. How about Deshaun Jackson? I picked him up. He was coming back. I was so excited. I'm like, yes, this is the week. I actually played him in the flex. I had a 2-flex league, and I said, hey, Jackson would be a nice play in that second flex spot. So we all know what happens there. He's set to undergo surgery again. He's going to keep him out again for 6 weeks, I believe. So he's out for the regular season. If the Eagles got in the playoffs, maybe he comes back. He could get in but for fantasy purposes, he's done for 19. Surgery later this week, so he is out. I think Nelson Aguilar will kind of pick up that bottom end of the receiver depth chart slack. Preston Williams, he was another one for the Dolphins. Hot waiver ad earlier in the season. He was paying off. I had him in a couple leagues, and he did well for me, but now he's got a knee injury. Out. Not really many viable options for Williams, but at the least, you know, he was a solid wide receiver 3, I thought, you know, week in and week out, flex spots. He was a great play. In his place, Devontae Parker is going to be your man, a mix of Allen Hurns, Grant. You kind of maybe look at those guys on the waivers. Adam Thielen, hamstring, big time bummer. I got Thielen in a couple leagues. Cost me a win in the one. Hamstring issue. I figured with that rest of week, you know, the rest for that 1 week, he'd come back, he'd be healthy, nothing crazy. Nope, he's done. He gone.
He gone.
I don't know if I'd even put him back in. Let's see, kind of monitor how he. Listen to these dogs; they're going nuts. They just love beating the crap out of each other. Hey, knock it off. So Thielen sidelined. Johnson is going to play opposite Diggs. Treadwell's in the mix. I picked up Treadwell in a league in my 2-on-1 league. What up, Tommy? Hard to say how that shakes out. Obviously, if you got Diggs, that's nice. But Johnson, he could be a hit or miss each week. Treadwell, it's a shot in the dark. T.Y. Hilton, quad, calf. Now it's the calf. He's out. Zach Pascal, Chester Rogers are going to step up in his place. Jacoby Brissett, MCL sprain. He's down. You got Brian Hoyer backing him up. Le'Veon Bell, I think he's okay. It's kind of questionable. You're going to keep an eye on him. Ty Montgomery is your insurance policy to Bell. But I think that overall the Jets offense is pretty much sputtering. Without Bell, they're going to be even worse. So kind of keep an eye on how that goes for week 10. Mark Walton, Dolphins, 4-game suspension. He is out. Kenyon Drake is in Arizona. Kalen Ballage, we all know, was he like 2 yards a carry or something? That's not even worth it. Patrick Mahomes, is he coming back too soon? David Johnson, is he coming back too soon? Maybe this week, kind of see how that plays out. Sterling Shepard, Brandon Cooks are in the concussion protocol. Not sure if we're going to see them again. Paris Campbell, wide receiver on the Colts. Hand injury. Ricky Seals-Jones for the Browns. Knee injury. I don't think that's too much on the radar, but something to keep an eye on. Deeper leagues if you've got those players. See what happens. Injuries are always can derail you at any time and are never good timing for the fantasy purposes there. So with that, let's get into some starts and sits for this week. Last week, I broke them down by games, kind of like how I do on SSVT every Thursday with my man Dennis. And I kind of like that, just rolling through the game. So forgive me if my voice is a little hoarse. Try to get through it. But we can start with Chargers and Raiders. And I'm just going to go, we all know our studs. You know, you're going to lock in every week, your ones and twos. I'm just going to feature a few players that kind of get the most traffic on Twitter as far as conversation goes. So with the Raiders and the Chargers, Phillip Rivers, pretty good game last week, but no touchdown. I think that comes back Thursday night against the Raiders secondary. I'm sure he'll throw a touchdown in there. Tyrell Williams, I'm going to fire him up in a revenge game versus his old team. I like him there. Mike Williams, I think he stays hot this week. The Raiders really don't have a big corner to cover him. They got rid of Conley to the Texans, so I believe Williams should be just as hot as he was against the Packers. Gordon and Eckler. I think the offense kind of worked a lot better with both of them and no Ken Wisenhunt calling the plays. I think it's a tough matchup, but I think they'll kind of continue that run game. It's a point of emphasis to control the clock and stay up there. Hunter Henry, Oakland is the third worst team in the league defending fantasy tight ends. So Henry obviously is your lock there. Kansas City, Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill, 3 starts this season. 836, 6 TDs. Only 3 quarterbacks have scored more fantasy points since he became the starter. The Chiefs defense has improved, but I don't think they're not as stingy as they are at home at Arrowhead. So tough spot there, but Tannehill's not awful. Damian Williams, I think he's the man again with the hot hand. McCoy, you could sit. Corey Davis, hard to trust that guy, but the Chiefs struggle with bigger receivers, especially in the red zone. I think I like Davis for a touchdown this week. Sammy Watkins. The Titans lost Malcolm Butler, but I'm still not sure about Watkins outside. Jonnu Smith, Delaney Walker may return. That's one to keep an eye on up to kickoff. The matchup, kind of a trap. I don't know if I'd roll. If you got to go with Jonnu Smith, you got to go with him. But keep an eye on what Delaney Walker's doing, his status up to game, kickoff. The Bills and the Browns. Baker Mayfield. The Bills have allowed one quarterback to score more than 18 fantasy points this season, and that was Ryan Fitzpatrick in Week 7. So Mayfield has yet to throw multiple touchdowns in a game. He's only got one game with exactly 20 fantasy points. Do you want him this week against the Bills? I say no. Josh Allen, he's getting okay numbers. I think he's been pretty decent. It can get ugly here. We'll have to see how that plays out. Cleveland's got something to prove this week. Lots of talk, lots of headlines, lots of reporters pissing people off. So this could be a different style of game than what we're expecting. John Brown, I think he's going to get Denzel Ward coverage. Doesn't have the size to get out of Ward's grasp, and his 50 yards per game receiving yards may come to an end this week. Devin Singletary, I hope to God he continues to get around 20 carries a game. Oh my God. He's got 7 catches, 10 targets the past 2 outings. This week, Browns defense, they've allowed a running back to score in 3 of their past 4. 6 guys gaining at least 74 total yards. You gotta love Singletary. Kareem Hunt, he's a big one. Lots of conversation this week about Hunt. He's coming back. Do I pick him up? What do I do? Picking up Kareem Hunt off of waivers. If you've got room on your roster, stash him. It's worth it. You never know. Maybe he does nothing. Maybe he turns into something. If you've got the room and you can do it and your roster is nice, do it. If you are fighting for that playoff spot and you've got to drop somebody big that may come back to burn you, I don't know if I'd drop somebody for Hunt. But this week, if you've got him or you're getting him, I think he's a flex play against the Bills. They've allowed a running back to score or gain at least 100 in every game. I think Nick Chubb obviously is going to be your guy. He's going to be started in all your leagues. But I think Hunt can do well with fresh legs, a little rotation. Maybe they sprinkle him in here or there. It's hard to say. But Hunt, I'd say a flex play this week. Lions and Bears. Stafford's been awesome, but it's really hard to torch the Bears. David Montgomery, the Lions allow the most fantasy points to opposing running backs. So a running back has either scored or gained at least 100 on Detroit in every game. I love Demo. Marvin Jones, I think Kenny Galladay is going to get through a tougher matchup through the secondary. I don't believe Jones can do the same. TJ Hawkinson, he came on. He did a lot more in Oakland. I think this matchup on the road is pretty similar, and he can do good things there. Ravens, Bengals, round 2. You got to love Lamar Jackson, what he did. I'm really hoping that this is not a letdown game where they just peaked at the Patriots and they're going to, take the Bengals for granted, similar to how the Packers took the Chargers for granted this past week. Bengals are not starting Andy Dalton. You got a different QB in there. You got to like the defensive play. Tyler Boyd he burned the Ravens the first matchup, but that was without Marlon Humphrey, I believe. So having Marlon Humphrey work the slot, I think, can shut him down. Mark Andrews, I'm going to fire him up again. He didn't shine and do crazy good against the Bengals the first time. This meeting, I think, is set up for him to succeed, have a real good game. Cardinals and Bucks. Every week I do the wire watch games of the week where I just pick my own 3 to 5 games that I'm really looking for, but Twitter characters, I can't go too crazy in there. I should have put the Cards and Bucks. The more I look at this game, I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch. It could be shootout material, could be back and forth. You've got two QBs, pretty similar, big arms. They can make plays with their legs. I'm pretty excited for this game. I think Jameis Winston, he's hot again. The matchup for him is great at home. And the wideouts, Kyler Murray on the other side, I think he's going to have fun. Shootout style against that Bucs defense. Their pass defense is pretty weak. Kenyon Drake, hot last week. You looked at him and you went, oh my God, how did he just blow up? I had him on the bench. Nobody kind of really knew what to expect from him. You could start him and he'd be a dud and you'd be like, damn, I started him for nothing. And then if you don't, and look at it, he goes off. But this week, David Johnson comes back. I think he gets most of the work. I think they're going to split with Drake. I don't think the matchup works, so to say, for Drake. So, I think he'd be more of a sit this week or a flex. Larry Fitzgerald. It's another revenge game. Larry Fitzgerald. Bruce Arians. I love it. I don't think the Bucs really have an answer for him in this matchup at all. I think you can move him around. You could get him underneath, out wherever you want him. I think he'll be too hot to handle. OJ Howard, tight end. He should be back from injury this week. I think this is a good matchup for him. He could really come through this week. So I think everybody in this game, you fire him up at least at a flex. Minimum, starters, what have you, 2s or 3s. Giants and Jets, battle for New York. Daniel Jones. The only concern with Jones this week for me is really he doesn't have Evan Ingram with the foot. He doesn't have Shep with the concussion. I think he's like a streamer this week for the Jets. Golden Tate, kind of underwhelmed against the Cowboys. I think he can really get in and take advantage in the slot in this matchup. Robbie Anderson and Crowder. I think Anderson should have a big scoring play as usual. I mean, he's always good for some big bomb, breaking free out of getting behind defenders, and it's a big play, right? I think Crowder can do well in the slot with Sam Darnold this week too. I think both of those guys are starts. Tight ends, Herndon and Griffin. Herndon's another. I had him on waivers and I was going to sneak him in there. I thought he'd really surprise, but when they didn't play him for these 2 weeks and he was supposed to come back, I just dropped him. I'm not even going to use him. Still kind of on the fence with him. He was active in week 9, but Ryan Griffin still led the tight end group. So out of the Jets practice this week, you need to see who's going to be figured more into that game plan and see how they play it out up until I'm not a believer until I see it with Herndon. Matt Ryan, Falcons, Drew Brees, Saints. Another one. Great game. I love this is a rivalry that I really like too in this NFC South. I love this. I know Matt Ryan, he's going to have some turnovers, but Atlanta's not going to really be able to run the ball here. Ryan's going to be throwing the ball like crazy to get, hang with the Saints. So I think this is either a high scoring affair game or it's a few touchdown garbage time kind of game for Matt Ryan. Devontae Freeman's a sit. The Saints are just nasty versus the run. I don't think he can make up for it out of the backfield passing or, getting into the passing attack. Calvin Ridley, I think him moving into the slot now is going to help him, get his own without Mohamed Sanu there anymore. Julio Jones, obviously, you're going to fire him up every game. Michael Thomas. Moving on to the Dolphins and the Colts. Kalen Ballage. No Mark Walton with the suspension we talked about earlier. I don't trust him on the road against a solid front seven in Indy. Devontae Parker for the Dolphins. He's been a top 20 receiver since week 4. Think about that. That's pretty under the radar kind of stuff. 5 straight games with at least 11 PPR points. And I think he's going to get a volume increase without Preston Williams in there. I think he's a top 20 receiver for me this week, maybe top 30 rest of the season. He's going to be decent. They're going to have to throw the ball, stay in the games. Zach Pascal, T.Y. Hilton with the injury. We talked about him, and Paris Campbell with the injury with the hand banged up. I think he's a great fill-in. He's got a nice matchup here at home with either quarterback, whether it's Brissett or Hoyer. Mike Gesicki. I think his targets ramp up too along, without Preston Williams in the mix. He's starting to come around. If he can get it going, I think he's one of the tight ends that you see late season. You go, man, he finished up the season pretty nice, and he can go into like an off-season redraft or something, a little higher than most would think. Jack Doyle and Eric Ebron. Doyle was the one that scored last week. I think both can find the end zone this week. Pretty decent spot. See how that plays out. Not an Ebron fan. I'd probably lean Doyle. Rams and Steelers. The Steelers. Jared Goff. Shaky play. I don't know. Good pass rush. Good secondary. He's on the road. No Brandon Cooks. I don't know if I like him too much this week. Juju Smith-Schuster. He's going to get the Jalen Ramsey treatment. He's coming off a bad game. That's not a good game to follow up on. Gerald Everett, tight end for the Rams. With no Brandon Cooks, I like his matchup quite a bit. Packers and Panthers. This game, Green Bay, you just don't know what's coming. You don't know what's coming. Christian McCaffrey, you just don't know. McCaffrey, I think McCaffrey is going to go off, and I mean go off in a huge way. Green Bay struggles with these shifty backs and these guys out of the back. Man, the Camaras and Ecklers, they haven't seen McCaffrey yet. This guy, I think he's going to torch him. If you got McCaffrey, I think he's going to set your squad on fire this week. Greg Olsen, Green Bay also allows the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends. It's easy for opposing tight ends, slot guys, anybody working the middle of the field on the Packers, they struggle there. I think it's their linebackers. Outside, they're good with Alexander. They've had Darnell Savage in there at the safety spot, their top rookie pick. He's been back in the mix for a few games, but overall, DJ Moore and Olsen, I think, shine this week down the middle of the field making plays. The Vikings and the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, he did some damage against the Giants. Vikings pass defense, I don't know. I mean, the defense is good, but then other games, they just don't show up. So I don't think they're as scary as they were maybe earlier in the season. Kirk Cousins feels like a big game for him on the road. Good defense, prime time. We know how Kirk Cousins is there. He's not awful, but take your chances, roll the dice. Kyle Rudolph, with Adam Thielen out, I think he's going to get some looks against the Cowboys. Biggest coverage weakness, so I can see him shining there. Seahawks and Niners, primetime. I love this game. Whew, it's going to be a great game too. Garoppolo. He's on fire with Emmanuel Sanders. It's a good connection there. They got some chemistry early. I think it's going to develop, and I can't wait to even see it next year too. But they're going to do some work on the Seahawks pass coverage. Seattle has allowed 4 quarterbacks in a row to score at least 20 fantasy points. The only worry here is just if the Niners really try to take the game over with the run, then you're not going to look at Garoppolo as much, but you don't know what Russell Wilson on the other side of the ball. Wilson's insane. If he's going to turn that game into a shootout, Garoppolo is going to have to throw. This could be an exciting game too. Coleman and Matt Breida, Tevin Coleman, Matt Breida. Coleman was a dud last week. I mean, he sucked. He sucked like Jim Mora. We sucked. We couldn't do diddly poo. The Niners are getting back Joe Staley on the offensive line from that leg injury. Mike McGlinchey, knee injury, offensive line. They may even get fullback Kyle Juszczyk with the knee back. 3 main cogs on that offensive line that really, really improve everything. Pass protection, run blocking. So if they can all 3 return, I really like San Francisco to do some damage. It's going to be a really good game. DK Metcalf, I think he's been looking good. Lots of stuff on Twitter with DK. But I think he's going to cool off a little bit here. The pass defense for the Niners, obviously, they're tough as hell. Metcalf I don't think he's going to be lighting it up. 2 touchdowns again. Crazy game like that. Maybe he gets a few catches. Moderate kind of game. Emmanuel Sanders, like I said earlier with Jimmy G, he could go off. He could have a big game. The Seahawks have allowed 8 receivers to score at least 11 points in their past 5 games. So you got to like Sanders this week to keep it rolling. That would be my picks there. So we can get into some players. We talked for the fantasy advice earlier. This is the time. You got to make some moves on the wire. The wire is crucial. Get some waiver ads. Get some players that are under the radar. You got to turn your roster a little bit here. Get some new blood in there. So the old guys, what are we doing there?
Screw you! You're fired! You're fired! Whoa! You're fired! You're fired!
Get ready, because these are going to be some names. I don't know, maybe some people are still holding on, but this is where I'm standing right now with them. Gardner Minshew, Jags. Nick Foles is back. Minshew Mania. The clock has struck midnight. I'm very sorry. I know he's still owned in a lot of leagues, but he's only thrown 4 TDs in his past 4. The multi-interception game against the Texans, I think they're going, with Foles coming back, that's it. I'm done with Minshew Mania. It was fun while it lasted. It really was. I love the stash, the Halloween costumes, but I think he'll be back. There'll be some little controversy there in Jacksonville, but Frank Gore for the Bills. I think Singletary is the man. He outtouched Gore 23-11 in the Week 9 win, so you got to think it's his backfield. It's coming around. Peyton Barber for the Bucks. I know he's owned in a lot of leagues too, but he's getting the back seat to Ronald Jones. I think Ronald Jones is putting his stake for that Tampa Bay backfield, so I'm thinking same kind of position as Singletary. He's taken that over, and I'm thinking the ending of the season here is where he kind of locks it down for this year and going into next year. Wide receivers, let's look at Robbie Anderson for the Jets. I know he can give you a couple good games. He can look hot, then he can have a dud. But, man, it's hard. It's very frustrating to put players like that in your lineup where they shine one week, they suck the next week. That inconsistency is what takes you right out of the playoffs. So, for me, he's out. Brandon Cooks for the Rams with the concussion protocol. You can't just keep hanging on for these protocol guys. I mean, man, how long do you want to keep him on or have him leave a game early, after he comes back? I need consistency. I need guys that I can trust. I want winners. Like the Singletary when he was the Niners coach. I want winners. So I'm done with him. Some other guys, I guess, just off the top. Chase Edmonds. Ty Johnson, both of those guys, put them together, throw them in a UPS box. They gone off the roster for good. Tariq Cohen, Duke Johnson, Nelson Aguilar, Antonio. I swear to God, if you've got Antonio Brown on your roster, I swear to God. Deshaun Jackson, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. How about nobody was higher on that guy than me? I was his biggest fan from training camp this year up until this week. I finally cut him. He's done. Done. So anybody else that you want to cut or that you need to fire, hit me up on Twitter and post them up there. I'd love to see who you guys are firing this week. Let's get into the real NFL games and let's see who we're picking this week.
Y'all boys ready? Yeah! Y'all boys ready? Yeah! Y'all boys ain't ready? Shit! Somebody light me up! Boom!
Whoa! Last week I sucked! I only had 6 right. Oh my God. That was a tough week 9. I was kind of rolling. Week 7 I had 11. Week 8 I had 9. I was doing pretty decent. So 6 I took a crapper there, but let's see if I can rebound here this week. Who do I like for the Thursday night matchup? The Raiders and the Chargers. Two California teams that might not be in California next year? Somebody going to London? No, God almighty, no. No, the Michael Scott meme. Nope. Raiders are plus 1.5. That's a very close game. Like I said, I picked these live on the spot. I don't look at any of these. I'm not prejudging, determined anywhere I'm swaying until I pick them live for this podcast. The Chargers would definitely be the hot team. Raiders are hot too. Defensively, I like the Chargers. I like who they're getting back from injury. So I'm going Chargers this week. The Lions and the Bears. The Bears are favored by 2.5. Trubisky is god-awful. I don't know how the Bears are favored. This one smells very fishy to me. I'm going Detroit. The Ravens and the Bengals. Cincinnati plus 9.5. I love the Ravens. Give me the damn Ravens. Cardinals and Bucks. The Bucks are favored by 4.5. I feel like Arizona is the more balanced, complete team. I mean, they're not great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're awesome. But I feel like just as a team, they're more balanced. Patrick Peterson at corner. I think they can handle Tampa Bay's run. So I'm going to go Arizona here. Chiefs and Titans. Titans plus 3.5. We don't know if Patrick Mahomes comes back or not, but I still like Chiefs to do damage and win this game. The Bills and the Browns. The Browns are favored by 2.5. Whoa. What's Vegas? You guys awake out there? 2.5? Give me Buffalo. Give me Buffalo. Jets and Giants battle for New York. Jets are plus 2.5. Give me the G-Men. Falcons and the Saints. I don't even have to tell you.
Yo! Saddle up! Lock and load!
Lock and load those Saints. Colts and Dolphins. Colts favored by 10.5. God, is everybody whooping Miami's ass by 10 points? See, it does feel like it. I guess I'll go Colts. Rams and Steelers. I love this. Is just an old school battle. I love these two. I mean, I don't like the Steelers at all. Don't get me wrong. But when these two teams play, I hope the Rams can do the old unis. It's just a good old school kind of game. Steelers plus 3.5. I'll take the Rams there with that defense with Jalen Ramsey. Mason Rudolph, he's going to have some trouble there. At least he's at home, but I still like the Rams to take that. They've got some work to do to get in that NFC playoff race. The NFC is stacked. The playoff picture, take a look at it. Look at those teams. Look at those records. I think the NFC is going to be a hell of a run to the playoffs and in the playoffs. I can't wait for that NFC side. Panthers and Packers. The Packers are favored by 4.5. That is funny to me. I just don't. McCaffrey is going to do too much damage. I think it's a closer game than people think. I know it's at Green Bay. It's at home. Green Bay just took the Chargers for granted and got their asses kicked out west in front of Green Bay West and all those Packer ticket sales. I think they come home, and I think they struggle with McCaffrey. I think the game is super close, and I think they do not cover a 4.5 spread. It's going to be one of those games decided by 3 points or less is my gut feel there. Vikings and Cowboys. Cowboys favored 2.5 in Jera World. Give me Dallas. Seattle and San Fran. This is a tough one. Niners are favored by 6.5. No.
Ooh, here we go.
Russell Wilson, you're going to beat Russell Wilson by 6.5. Not if he has anything to say about it. That's another game. It comes down to 3 points or less. Give me Russell Wilson and the Seahawks pick there. And you know what? I will actually...
Yo! Saddle up! Lock and load!
I will lock that one too. I think that's a good game. That's going to be a great game. There's some good games on the slate this week. That other week we had really sucked. But this one, there's a lot of good games on the schedule this week. I can't wait to watch them. Let's finish it out. Let's close up the show here. Let's get ready for week 10. Let's get our roster set. Let's look over the lineups. Get who we want in there. Play those matchups. Who's your opponent playing? Let's get it all dialed in.
Purple rain, purple rain.
So that will wrap up week 10. And as always, thank you very much for listening, supporting the show. Drop a comment, share the episode, hit me up on Twitter. Anything you want to hear on the show, we can talk fantasy. Like I said, profile your squad. It's casual conversation podcast. So there's no scripts, no hot takes, no garbage, just shooting off the hip, talking football, talking fantasy. I'm game for anything. So good luck this week. Get your leagues, get your squads in check. I'm going to try to record next week. With work, I may not be able to. I'm going to try to. If I can't, I will definitely be back in time for the fantasy playoffs, but things have just been crazy. So I do apologize, but the website will keep it up and updating every Thursday. Like I said, check it out. Twitter, I'm always active, so you can find me on there and the crew. But I appreciate you listening, as always, and we will see you back on the next episode.
Yeah, all right, this press conference is over.
Go away.
No, it's over, Phil. It's over.
That wraps up today's episode. For even more fantasy football content, find Frank on Twitter at FantasyWireHQ and online at thefantasyfootballwire.com. Be sure to tune in next week, and thanks for listening.